But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you were already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, you know, we're happy because now we feel safe, I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacists, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor.
What happens when a congresswoman explodes over FBI failures and a Trump ally fires back defending the system? Jasmine Crockett and Kash Patel clash over power, extremism, and who's really keeping America safe, and the truth is far more unsettling than the shouting.
Man, oh man, there has been so much today, and I truly don't know where to start. So I'm just going to make sure that we start off with a few facts. So a couple of facts that we need to make clear for everyone is that, number one, Director Christopher Wray, when he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining. Yet we are supposed to believe that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question. Now, what I want to go through is to talk about why you are a failure and why, honestly, we just need to tell you bye-bye. I know that you got a little upset and you put on your show for your boss because it seems like you're trying to save your job when it came to talking to Senator Booker yesterday. But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you were already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, you know, we're happy because now we feel safe, I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacists, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues. And frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And if we start talking about the reasons that I lack confidence, we could start with you not just wanting to acknowledge some simple facts. Simple facts like the vast majority of the threats are coming from right-wing extremism. And I know my colleagues have tried to stress this, but I decided that I would maybe do it in a different way. Number one, I have a couple of UCs. Kim Buck, one of multiple Republicans receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker.
Without objection.
Another one, Republican lawmaker says she received death threats after voting against Jim Jordan in Speaker's race.
Without objection.
In addition, there was another one from another colleague who now is leaving Congress because they said that they were calling his wife anonymously and threatening her life to the extent that she ended up sleeping with a firearm.
Without objection.
Okay, so here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs. You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people. And even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody. And then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap. Because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there. Even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing except for trying to put on a show for the apprentice or whatever you want to call him. The day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? Because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem. The one that is leading to children being killed, children being shot, as well as members of their community as they're worshiping in their churches.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. If the gentleman would like.
Now let's cut through the noise and look at what the actual record reveals. What we witnessed in this exchange wasn't just a heated political moment. It was a collision between two fundamentally different narratives about power, accountability, and public safety in America. At the center of Jasmine Crockett's argument is a very specific charge that the FBI, under leadership appointed by Donald Trump, has failed to protect the American people, particularly from right-wing extremism, and has instead become performative, politicized, and strategically misdirected. Her remarks weren't random outrage. They followed a clear structure. First, Crockett establishes responsibility. She makes it explicit that Christopher Wray was appointed by Donald Trump. This matters because it dismantles a common partisan defense that FBI failures can simply be blamed on Democrats. Her point is clear. If these failures exist, they happened under leadership chosen by Trump himself. That framing directly undercuts Kash Patel's broader defense strategy, which historically leans on portraying federal institutions as sabotaged by internal deep state actors rather than political appointees. Second, Crockett attacks qualifications and competence. She highlights that Wray had no prior FBI experience, something unprecedented, and argues that this lack of institutional grounding shows up in operational failures, staffing shortages, misallocated resources, and delayed threat responses. When she cites the claim that it would take 14 years to fully staff the FBI, she's not just criticizing logistics, she's signaling institutional decay. Third, and most powerfully, Crockett reframes the national security conversation around who actually feels safe. This is where the debate shifts from bureaucratic failure to lived reality. She contrasts official reassurances with documented threats against lawmakers, Republicans included, who face death threats for defying party leadership. This is a crucial rhetorical move. It removes partisan protection and replaces it with documented evidence. Her repeated emphasis on right-wing extremism is not accidental. Crockett is aligning her critique with FBI data itself, which has consistently identified domestic extremism, particularly white supremacist violence, as the most persistent terror threat. By accusing leadership of refusing to acknowledge this simple fact, she's effectively accusing the FBI of ignoring its own intelligence assessments. This is where Kash Patel's implied counterposition enters the frame. Patel's broader public stance has consistently defended Trump-era law enforcement while arguing that federal agencies have been weaponized politically. But Crockett flips that logic. She suggests that the real weaponization isn't against conservatives. It's the failure to act against violent extremism because acknowledging it would politically inconvenience Trump and his allies. Her reference to HBCUs being targeted is especially telling. It's not just about one missed press conference, it's about visibility and priority. Who gets immediate federal attention and who doesn't? In Crockett's telling, marginalized communities are left to absorb violence quietly while leadership performs for political optics. The emotional intensity of her remarks, particularly as a Black woman explicitly stating she does not feel safe, is not rhetorical excess. It's evidentiary. She's positioning lived experience as data, challenging the idea that safety can be measured only through press releases and arrests. So what does this debate really reveal? It reveals a widening gap between institutional messaging and public trust. It reveals how national security discussions are increasingly filtered through political loyalty rather than threat assessment. And most importantly, it exposes how accountability disappears when leadership prioritizes optics over outcomes. Whether one agrees with Crockett's tone or not, the substance of her argument raises a deeply uncomfortable question. If the FBI can't or won't confront the most statistically proven threat to American lives, then who exactly is being protected? That's the question Kash Patel and others have yet to convincingly answer. And until they do, the outrage isn't noise. It's a warning.